Hello everyone, welcome back to another video, and today I'm going to be showing you how I created this 25 by 25 inches leather tote bag. That's right, it's a huge project, so let's get right into that. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video, and today I am actually going to be announcing a brand new series on my YouTube channel, which is Unprofessional DIY. And for this project, I decided to start off with creating a very unique 2 by 2 or 24 by 24 inches. Actually, this is more like 25 inches wide. This is basically a big tote bag that I created by hand. I so stitched this by hand. I made this whole bag by hand. And the reason why I decided to do this crazy, huge bag is because, as you many know, I actually work in advertisement. I work in marketing, and one of the projects that I had to do is actually I had to go visit my clients, and I do a lot of project photos. Even though I do try to do the majority of my work in studio, there are times that I don't have, I'm not able to actually bring in this, some of the products into the studio. So I had to go into my clients, offices and things like that, and that's where I need to do the photos. So I started using something called replicas, which is basically like, it gives you like a little replica of like behind the scenes. Some of these are white, and I do have a few of them, so I've been carrying them literally in my hand, like you can see on this photo. I actually posted that back in January, I think it was, and I honestly so tired. It has been so windy and things like that, and or sometimes even just literally holding one of these in my hand while I'm over here holding my phone on the other hand, it just becomes so annoying, and I'm like, I need to get myself a bag that I can fit this into. But unfortunately, I couldn't find one. I went on Amazon, I went everywhere, and I'm like, I need to find one that I can actually fit in it. And I couldn't find one. So I ended up making the decision that I'm like, you know what? F it, I'm going to be making it myself. And that is how we end up with this beautiful leather tote bag. And like I said, it is huge. It is over 2 feet long, both sides. Basically, it's a huge square. And of course, I'm gonna teach you, and I'm going to show you how I end up doing this lovely bag. And of course, at the end of this video, I'm going to be giving you guys the total amount of how much I actually spent and all the tools and going over that. But of course, let's just get started in showing you how I created this bag. Okay, so here is the plan. I want to make my bag 25 by 25. So we're gonna use centimeters. Half a centimeter is gonna be 1 inch. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So this is 10. This is 20. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I want my bag to be approximately 2 inches wide. So it's gonna be this. And then of course the bag is gonna be more rounded over here because I want this hole to be one-sided. So I want the curve. So we said this is going to be 25 inches by 25 inches. So this whole thing is going to be 25. And then this is going to be 2 inches. So the inside is going to be more together. Okay, so this is, and now for the handles, I don't know how I want the handles to be. I was thinking about that too. I do want them to be quite long, because I do have long arms. So I'm gonna take a bag, and I think I'm gonna do maybe like another, because this is 12 feet. So if we do 2 and then round it up, it's gonna be like this big. So it's gonna be 25 inches. So it's gonna be almost the same thing. So let's see if we can put it here as a 12. And I do want it to be approximately, we give it around 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2.5, 1, 2, 3, and I do want it to be nice and thick, but then around the middle it's gonna go a little thinner because it's gonna be folded, and I'll be showing you what I mean by that. Okay, so this is technically what our back is gonna look like. It's gonna be 25 inches, and it's gonna be 25 inches in my outer, and then it's gonna be 2 inches of thickness. So let's get right into that, and I'm gonna show you what I got. Okay, so this is what I got. I went to Walmart and I found this, and the reason why I went to Wally is because Joan Fabrics unfortunately closed all the stores and I had no other place to go. So I went to Walmart and I did end up finding this beautiful leather with this really square, I don't know, plaid, little, not plaid, like square design to it, little print. It actually looks really cute, and that cost me $10.27, and this is approximately 1 yard. So that's one. Then I also have this black fabric, which also I think this is 1.5 yards, and it cost me $4.77, and I'm going to be using this for my inside liner and also to create like a pocket, and basically that's why I got this in a bigger size. And I do want my bag to have a zipper, so I got this one. I believe this was like $2 and some change, also from Wally. I believe this measures 24 inches long, so I'm going to be putting this in the bag as well. All right, and I do have brown what's it called, I do have brown thread that I recently got like about not too long ago, and I believe that was also like $2, and needles, which I will go over at a later time. So now let's just get into measurements. Because my table is very small, it doesn't fit, so I'm using the top of my bed, and we're going to be measuring this. So I have my big ruler here. It goes all the way down to 35, so we're going to make sure we do this correctly. As you can see, there's like already a line right here. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to make sure this line goes on the bottom of my bag. So I'm going to start from the edge, and then whatever's left over, that's what we're going to be using for the handles. Okay, so I'm going to see which edge is actually the smoothest, and I think actually going to start from this side. So this fabric is really crooked, so I want to make sure I create nice edges. So this is the straight edges of the fabric, so I just line up the ruler according to this edge, and I made a straight line across this side. I already mark it, and I'm just going to cut it so we can have a more rectangle edges, nice and straight. All right, now that we have our more straight corner, now we can measure our fabric. So we said we are going to be needing a total of, so we need 52 inches and 2 centimeters. So we're going to be measuring 52. Actually, I'm going to be flipping it, and we're going to work on this side instead. After everything is lined up, now we're going to be cutting again. Okay, so our bag is technically almost made, and now I want to make sure my edges are nice and even. So we're just going to fold it in half to make sure everything lines up, and it does. So now what I'm going to do now is actually I'm going to be measuring the liner on the inside, because I want to make sure I do that first. So when I sew the whole back together, I want to make sure the liner and the outside leather also goes into together, so I don't have to make 2 separate bags, if that makes sense. Almost the same size as the other one, just minus the 1 centimeter of all the edges. So now let's see how this fabric goes. Okay, so now this fabric has 2 sides, so I think I like this side a lot better. So that's the side that we're going to be playing with. For the sake of my bed, I'm gonna be using this on the bottom of it because I don't want to be sharpening my bed. And I'm going to be using the red Sharpie, and I really hope it works because I don't think I have nothing else that can probably go on this. And for that sake, let's see if we can actually do it. Okay, it could probably work. All right, so we have our liner. So as you can see, this liner is very wrinkly. So I'm going to iron it pretty quickly, so it avoids all those wrinkles and hopefully give us a better, nice liner. All right, now that I iron it as much as possible, now it's time to just flip it, and then we're going to line it up with our leather as much as possible. Now, while doing the measurements, I actually messed up because I actually forgot to add the 2 inches that is gonna make our width of our bag. So since I did add 1 inch on top, because I wanted like a little more like a deep designed, but since I messed up, thank God I added 1 inch on each side, so that it gave us 2 inches. So instead of doing the 1 inch gap on top of the bag to add the zipper, I'm just going to forget about it and just do it normally, so we can add the 2 inches on the bottom. So thank God that was a sake messed up, and I guess it wasn't meant to be. Okay, now with our leftover from our long inliner, we're going to be making the zipper. So for that, this is the same width as the actual bag, so that's great already. Now I just want to make sure it has about 1.5 inches on each side of the zipper, so it can go nice in the middle. So with the fold and all that stuff, I'm gonna add maybe like 1/2 of an inch for each side. So I'm gonna put approximately, I want it to be about 1 inch on each side, so plus another 1/2 of an inch on both sides, that equals to 2. So for the sake of measurements, I'm just gonna do 2.5. So for the sake of this, since I need 2 sides, I'm gonna be doing 2.5 times 2 is equals 5 inches. So this is a straight line on this side. I'm just gonna measure 5 inches on this side, and I'm also gonna be measuring 2.5 inches, so we can cut this in the middle. And now we're going to be cutting. All right, so we have our 2 strips right here, and of course I'm going to iron them as well. All right, so now this is a more crucial situation happening here, so let me explain what's happening. So this is the liner of our bag, right, and it finishes here. So now that we cut this little part earlier, now I'm gonna line it up over here. Now this part is gonna line up, so it's gonna match. So by the way, this is upside down. That's why the back side is on the outside. Now with our pins, we are going to be measuring approximately 1/2 inch from each side, because that's how much we're going to be doing. Actually, let's do 1 centimeter. Now that we have 1 centimeter, and now we have our zipper and it's upside down, we're gonna lighten up. Now watch this very careful. I'm gonna fold another centimeters, and on top of it I'm gonna put the zipper, so when I turn it around we have a nice edge under the zipper. So now what I'm going to be doing is, since I have a little gap here, because as you know I miscounted 2 inches out of the liner, so this is what the edge of my bag is going to look like. As you can see, there's a little bit of a gap here, and I do want to cover this whole area either way. So I'm going to be cutting approximately, how much? So it's approximately 3 inches from the zipper to the edge of the bag. So, but because I also need to do a fold for the zipper, so we're gonna add another 1/2 inch. So I'm going to be cutting another strip that is going to be 3.5 inches, so I can cover this whole area. Okay, so I just cut off the 3.5 inches. So now what we're gonna do is actually I'm going to be sewing this part first, but the way it's gonna look at the end, I'm actually going to be adding this part over here. Actually, I think I can sew it all together. I think I'm gonna do that so we don't have to sew like multiple times, and that way we can add this part like this, and that way it will look more like this at the end, and then we can add this layer and it's gonna look nice and beautiful. Alright, so I just pinned down this little part. I also folded this part only because it was too long, it was annoying me, but this is just temporarily. This is the main one, this is for the zipper, so that way when we do flip the zipper, this is the way it's gonna look like, nice and clean. And as you can see, I also separated the zipper for now to make life a lot more easier. So this all gonna look like this at the end. So it's gonna look nice and clean on both sides. So I'm just going to repeat the same thing on the other side, and I'm gonna sew it together. And of course, next time I see you, this hopefully will be nice and sew together. Okay guys, so it's been approximately a few hours. Actually, it's a whole new day, and I'm gonna show you what I have done so far. So I want to start by giving you guys an update on the zipper situation. So it is all sewn in now, finally, and I'll show you what I have done. So this is technically what I did. This is the panel. This is the 3.5 inches, the one that I cut. The reason why it looks like it's not 3.5 inches is because I did end up sewing it together with the other ones, making this really nice cute line here. So it actually looks like a whole zipper panel, and that's because this is going to be going along the edge. So when the back is in use, this panel can give, actually cover the 2 inches that I'm going to be giving the width of the bag. Now, another thing that I didn't actually do, I was planned or even anticipated to do, was actually create this little pocket. I mean, I knew I was going to do the pocket, but I accidentally miscounted the fold of the edge. So I did end up cutting this little part, and of course I did end up sewing it together, so it creates this really nice floppy pocket without inconvenient the edge. So this way it looks, I can still do the edge in a more comfortable way, and that way we can still use the zipper and close the bag. And of course I repeated the same thing on the other side. So this is one side of the zipper, and I have my bag right now rolled up, but on the other side I basically did the same thing. Now on this side, as you can see, I already started working on the pocket. I want my inside of the bag to have 2 different pockets, because I actually decided this at last minute. So this was not even, but this is technically when I did cut this through 3.5 inches, it gave me a little bit of a extra fabric. So this is technically the 7 inches, so 3.5 times 2 is 7. So this is technically what we end up cutting earlier, just on a longer scale. So what I end up doing is actually I end up folding it in half, and I got these 2 pockets right here. This one I already sewed in almost halfway, and now for this one I'm going to be showing you how I actually end up doing the pocket. So for the pocket, it's actually pretty simple. Actually, yes, I actually like to use some pins to really make sure everything looks nice and line up, and of course my ruler. So for this one's pretty simple. So for, let me see, I have to pick a side, whichever size works. Okay, let me see. Always make sure you pick the nicer side to be on the outside. So you can see this is the inside. So we're gonna fold in. I'm gonna fold in 1 inch, sorry, 1/2 inch on each side, and then I'm gonna pin it along the side. Okay, now that we have both sides folded, I like to take my flat iron and I like to really make sure those folds are nice and folded. So this way it makes my life a lot easier, especially when it comes to doing multiple folds, like I will show you in a second. But also it makes life a lot easier when it comes to sewing, because sometimes these little pins can really be really harmful for my fingers. Now that we have our piece nice and folded and ironed, so now I'm going to be picking this side or either side, and I'm going to fold it one more time to make a really nice, more cleaner edge for our pockets. And I believe for this side I'm going to put in, actually I'm going to make it about an inch thick. Another little trick that I want to show you guys is when it comes to the corners, I do like, so I'm going to be making another fold right here, and so we don't want the edges, the corners to be very bulky, so I just cut almost, not all the way to the corner, but you know, we do leave a little bit of space here, so I just cut in the half of this little edge and then just cut it, so that way it actually creates a better fold and it's not as bulky. And then when we fold, it doesn't create that bulkiness, and also it makes it easier to sew things together. Okay, so now we have our pocket. It is nice and folded. I like to actually leave the corners hooked so they don't actually, you know, go all over the place. Now I'm going to be sewing in this part right here so we have a more clean edge for our pocket, and I'm going to show you how I've been sewing almost everything so far, and actually this is the way I'm going to be sewing the rest of the bag. So I have 2 needles, and yes, actually doing this by hand because I don't have a machine, and I don't think I'm going to be investing in one anytime yet because I don't really do this pretty often. And then I like to measure my thread, so it's one, but so we're doing 2 stitches, I like to double it and maybe add like 1 more just in case. And then we're just gonna cut this and we're gonna put it on each needle. So we have 2 needles, 1 thread. Oh, I think that's a title. Now for this, I'm gonna start off, I like to sew, I have been sewing kind of like in the middle, so for this instance I actually going to be sewing, I'm going to start from the middle as well in a nice spot, and then I like to even it out so nice and even on both sides. Okay, and then we start sewing in. For the stitching, I had to make sure I make even stitch and make sure I try to line up as straight and everything looks nice and even and cohesive with each other. So I like to start off with like some, you know, I just do some stitchings, very simple one, but then I go with the other one and I do an under stitching. So basically I start with the same hole that I did the bottom one, I put it through it again, and then I just technically fill in the gaps from my previous stitch. I really want to make sure I try to put the needle exactly almost at the same hole that we had the previous one. And that way we can have a really nice double stitching. And of course there's so many ways to do this. I know when it comes to the leather I'm gonna have to do it, you know, one by one, but because this is a very light fabric I can do it on one side and then just cohesively go with both of them. And basically that's the way I've been doing almost the entire bag. Okay, now we are going back to the bag itself, and as you can see, here's my packet once more. Let me clean it up a little bit. Now here is our packet. It has been stitched, just the top part, and that's because this part is actually going to be going right on top. So as you can see, I already did the line right over here. So now this part is gonna match this part. So the pocket is gonna be right there. So now what I'm gonna do is actually I'm going to be lining it up, and then we're gonna be stitching all these 3 edges right here and then finishing up this way. All right, it's been a few days since my last time that I updated you guys, and as you can see, we have made some progress, and of course a lot of different things have changed ever since my last little update. And I believe the last update I gave you guys where I was doing my pockets of my beautiful bag, and as you can see, I finished the pockets already. This is the final result. I sewed in all the sizes and everything, and I even added this little middle department here. So we have 2 pockets on top, and then we have 1 big one on the bottom part. And as you guys can also see, I finished the stitching on this side, and I added a handle as well. And I'm gonna show you why we end up doing that and why I haven't give you guys an update. And that's because there have been a lot of different changes. So from the back itself, I've done the stitching on both ends of, so we put in together the liner. So as you can see, I finally sewed in the liner together on both sides. And the reason why it took me a long time is because I originally wanted to sew in the leather with the actual thread that I got. And then I realized that maybe this thread is not going to be strong enough for a bag of this size. So I end up going quickly on Amazon, and I end up getting myself this really cute leather bundle. I think this cost me like literally $10. And I like the fact that it came with the needles, and it came with actual thread, like actual sewn leather thread, and it comes with a few other accessories. And believe me, this is like my new obsession. It has been come recently, and you can see I actually have been using the black one. And believe me, this whole thing has been like maybe what? It's been literally a week since the last time I worked on this bag. And the handle and all that stuff have been done in the last few days. So it's basically been a week since the last time I gave you guys the last update about the pocket situation. So this has been taking me a little bit too long from my perspective, but honestly, I'm loving the results. I mean, it is a big bag, so I really cannot make much complaints about it. And also, this is my first time doing this, so I'm not a professional. I have never done this before, so we're learning as they go. And you can see the stitching has become, you know, very nicely. I love how neat things are coming along for my first time, and everything looks so far so well. So now I'm gonna show you guys how I handle the other handle, how I've been, you know, putting it all together. As you can see, this is one side already done. This is the handle that I already placed, and I'm gonna show you guys how I end up doing that. So we're going to be actually flipping this on the other side, so we can kind of work on this side. So this is the other side, and I have the handle right here, which I already kind of like pre-made it already, but we're going to be unstitching this and then stitching it with the correct thread. You can see I've been using this wax thread, so it makes life a lot easier when it comes to sewing. But I wanted to show you this because I actually, when it comes to the handles itself, I added a piece of fabric of the liner inside the handle, so it makes the actual leather stronger. In my perspective, this is actually kind of like a soft leather, and I don't want it to stretch or anything like that, especially since this is going to be handling a lot of force and weight. So I don't want the back, the actual leather to stretch. So I added this piece of fabric inside, so hopefully this will kind of reduce the stretchiness. So, and also this whole part of the liner is not going to be visible because I can show you at the end result. This is the end result of the actual handle. So when it comes to measurements, I added, I believe this is more like a 25. So I did end up cutting 35 inches, and then of course I always leave the half an inch on the sides. So this is going to be in total of 34 inches long. And then to add into the actual bag, I added 6 inches on both sides, of course on the outside. But then after the fold and everything, which I do half an inch, it will be down to approximately almost 5 inches. So this is the way I have already measured at somewhere here where I kind of really divided, and I believe I did approximately, I did a gap of 8 inches. So using this really nice cool ruler that I purchased. So I just like to measure correctly, and then I measure 8 inches in size, and then that way I can nicely capture the handle. So now I'm going to be adding the handle on this side, and then of course I'll catch you guys up once I'm done with the handle. Okay, so it's been maybe like 2 weeks since we started this project, and we are almost done. I want to show you guys literally, this is going to be kind of my last update before we officially conclude this whole bag. And as you can see, it's starting to really come back together, and I already started doing a little bit of the side to really put the bag together. And I'm going to show you kind of what I've been doing to really conclude this little tutorial DIY project, so we can move on and finally go to the next one, because I'm really excited. All right, so as you can see, I wanted this to be on the other side, so the inside liner looks nice and neat. I've really been loving this stitching for some weird reason, and I'm gonna lie, this takes a lot more complicated, you know, to actually put together rather than the sewing part, because I think I got the sewing part all figured out. But basically the way I do it, I did this little part, so I want to do the other side before I officially close it, because I feel like if I close it, I'm not going to be able to actually get an accurate way to ensure it. So I have this little piece here, which I believe this is approximately 30, actually, let me bring out the ruler. All right, so this little piece right here is what we use for the handle. And I do have a little bit of an extra, as you can see, and the reason why is because I don't trust myself, and even if it's a little uneven, even though I'm trying to make it as even as possible, even if there's a slightly unevenness, I'll be able to really cut this to perfection and be able to unite them together. So I'm kind of giving myself a little bit of a room for error here. So I do cut this part. So the leather part, it is approximately 27 inches, and then of course for the liner I have 26 for that. So once again, this is a liner, and I don't really have to sew this part. That's because when I do the sewing, I'm already sewing all things together at once. All right, so right here I already have marked the middle of the bag, and now I'm going to be marking the middle of my side handle. Now for this part, it is very crucial to make sure the both sides, the liner and the outliner, are really together, because we won't be able to see them again. Alright, so flip this part right here, and now I make sure I line up both middles together, making sure everything is nice. I'm trying to keep it as even and straight as possible. Let me tell you, this clips has been lifesaver throughout this whole process. So I'm very thankful for this. And this one is literally the strongest one. So this one has definitely been my favorite one of them all. Alright. Actually, I messed it up already. Actually, no, I'll take it though. Never mind. It's very similar, but instead of doing it all the way down to the edge, actually I'm supposed to leave a half an inch for space because we're gonna be folding this part over it. So let me double check and make sure it's 1/2 inch. Perfect. Perfect. Look at that. Without even trying to do it. Make sure both lines are even. Line up correctly. Okay. Double check this part. Good. Good. And now we fold. Make sure the fold is also 1/2 inch. Perfect. Perfect. All right, so it looks like we have a first fold here, and I like to use my tightest little clip, put it right in the middle so it really puts it all together. There we go. So now this is a little tricky part that honestly it took me a minute for me to realize. It does gonna look a little weird at the end. I mean at first, but then at the end it's gonna be really nice and smooth. So because I want to make it really nice transition into like a nice fold, so I only cut the inside because I wanted to match this part to the outside, so make sure we're doing that correctly. So just struggle a little bit, but make sure you keep everything on the same size no matter what the situation is, and that way we can start making a shape. So because this is like a rough edge, it's an actual corner, so me keeping it together on this part so you can create this little edge right here. But I don't want to cut the actual leather, the outer layer. I actually want to fold it and actually create that really nice sharp square. I'll show you in a sec. Also in the rest, but as you can see right here in this corner, it looks really nice and like a nice edge as a corner. You see this? So that's what we're going to be doing. So I'm going to be sewing this part out, and then we're going to put it all together to finish the bag. Alright, so on my bag is almost officially done. The only thing I had to do is make this into this. So the way I did it is basically I fold it. So I'm going to measure 1/2 inch on each side. And this time, instead of actually measuring with a pen or something like that, I'm actually going to be cutting with this. There's cutters. So say about 1/2 inch, which is right there, and I'll do the same thing on this side, about 1/2 inch. And now with my pair of scissors, I'm just gonna cut a straight line from one side to the other, and that's what we have. As you can see, one is higher than the other, as I was expecting it to be, because remember, errors can happen, but I don't want this bag to be too far off, so this is the way to do it. But then of course on the other side we do have a little bit of, okay, I'm gonna have to fold this back in a very unique way because this is gonna be quite interesting to do. You can see still have a little bit of the liner on top. I'm gonna cut that one too, or 1/2 inch, so when I fold it, it doesn't create much of a bulk like that. I cut 1/2 inch of the liner, so that way now that I'm going to fold it, it actually looks a lot better. Now that the whole bag is almost all done and sewn in together, as you can see, it's starting to get really quite hard to make folds, but thank God this is literally the last fold that I gotta make before officially sewing it all together as well. And technically this is the final way that is going to be sewn together. So now I'm just going to sew this together so it looks more like this, and then I'll be officially done with this bag. And after all of that, that's how we end that right here. This is officially the bag that basically I show you guys at the beginning. Well, here we are again. That's how I created this lovely bag. And I love the fact that I was able to add a zipper to it. And I know I added some pockets for like my phone, my iPad, and things like that. Actually, I have found them very, very useful for like accessories like this. These are the ones that keep them together when they're standing. So I do have a few of them and they fit perfectly in the pockets inside. And of course, the zipper closes nice and smooth. Just gonna want to close it right now to show you how nicely. And mind you, already have two of the replicas already inside the bag. I'm going to be adding another two in here, and basically just keep them here when I'm not using them actually. And of course it also ready to go if I need to. So here we go. I just closed the bag. As you can see, it is nice and easy, and I can just hold it like this and ready for me to go. Like, it is so easy, it is so convenient. Like, I just in love with this bag so far. Like, you have no idea. I just love the way it turns out. Even the stitching itself, not sure if you can see it. Like, the stitching itself is beautiful. I honestly really proud of myself. I don't think I ever done I know a bag. I mean, I've done many bags before in my life, but this has to be one of my most precious, most upgraded version of it. And the fact that I really had to get all the stitching and the skits and all that stuff, like, honestly, I am so happy. And I also love how sturdy it is. That's the another thing that I was worried about, but honestly, I do feel very confident carrying this anywhere I go and feeling very sturdy. And in total, I think I have to say I spent approximately, the kit from Amazon, that was like almost $10, and then the leather and all the stuff, I have to say between $35 to $40, which for a bag this big and with a like actual like soft leather and things like that, for $40, that's not bad at all. So, in mind you, I am keeping the majority of the items that I purchase for future projects. So it's not like I use all of it at once. I have a lot of other materials that I would like to do, maybe a little keychain and things like that. I still have some fabric left over. So, I still have a lot of different ideas that I want to do. So these tools that I end up purchasing is more like an investment. So if I would have made this again, it probably is only going to cost me the actual fabrics, which was in total of $15. So that is not bad at all. All right, and I think that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you guys subscribe to this channel for more videos like this, which I do have a lot of different projects working right now. Actually, I'm looking at a few of them already, and I cannot wait to share all of them with you. And of course, make sure you guys give it a thumbs up. Follow me on social media at Javier Ortiz NY. And that's it. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.